Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is André Bernhard. I'm an independent advisor, and I'm happy to be your host today for the fantastic MediaNet Exchange State of the Industry Panel 2024. I'm here, but I'm not here alone because I brought fantastic people with me, or I would say the MediaNet brought fantastic people with me, or brought us together, so we can have a nice and diverse discussion about all the topics that were interesting in 2024, but also give an outlook about which things to expect from the next year. So I'm André Bernhard, I mentioned this already, but I'm not alone. With me is Felix Dreyfus of Tarok Interactive, also Amanda Furch from the Medium Board, and last but not least, Philipp Schellbach of Jäger Interactive. Big applause from our publicum, from our audience, because we are not here alone. Thanks a lot. Works like a charm. And also a warm welcome to everyone who is watching us online. A little bit of housekeeping before we continue with the introduction. This is going to be an interactive panel, so you have the opportunity to ask us some questions later on. We have the fantastic Oliver somewhere around here in the background who is taking notes of all your questions that are entered in the chat, and later on we can come back to your feedback. That's it so far from my side, but as I mentioned, it's not about me, it's also about the people that we have over here. So please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more. What's your studio doing and what are you doing, or what is your company doing? Let's start with Felix first, please.
Thanks, Andre, for this introduction. Like you said already, my name is Felix Dreyfus. I'm currently founder and CEO of Tarok Interactive. I've been in the industry for about 17 years. I founded all kinds of indie studios who more or less worked, and since 1.5 years I'm getting my hands dirty again, and we're doing a survival crafting game set in ancient Rome.
Okay, and it's called?
Lost Legions.
So make sure everyone to wishlist this, yeah? So everyone goes out with the best, every one of the panelists also comes out with some positive wishlist numbers on that. Thanks a lot, Felix. Amanda.
My name is Amanda Furch. I'm working for Medium Board Berlin-Brandenburg as in German Förderreferentin, or in English, funding executive games. We work to strengthen the games ecosystem in the region Berlin and Brandenburg. So we fund games, we fund institutions, events, and also knowledge transfer to get the games industry into a better position here.
And you do a very good job on this, because since years, the Medium Board, since decades, I would say, the Medium Board is pouring out money to the Berlin-Brandenburg development scene and studios that we have over here. But yeah, Philipp, one of the not older persons, but one of the oldest studios of Berlin representing.
Yes, hi, my name is Philipp Schellbach. I'm a co-founder and managing director of Jäger, a game development studio based here in Berlin since 25 years. We are well known for the games Back Ops: The Line, but we also did a game called Dreadnought and a game called The Cycle Frontier. And lately we also did a couple of co-dev work with games like Dune Awakening and Exoborn. And yeah, we are around since 25 years. We are around 130 people here in Berlin.
Yeah, great.
We're one of the oldest studios here in Berlin.
Yeah, but you are still young. But there is no title that people can wishlist on Steam and think, because you do games as a service.
Yes, that's true. Right now we have an own project in development, which I cannot tell you anything about. But so there will be a time where you can wishlist Jäger games again. But right now there's nothing to wishlist. Except for Dune Awakening and Exoborn, which are great titles coming out next year. So go over to the webpage, spend some money on, I don't know, loot boxes or whatever, in-game services that you have to offer on those games, and make sure that Philipp also goes out with a good feeling of today. Because, yeah, we have some sad topics as well today. It's not alles shiny in the games industry, I would say, but we're trying to let you go, hopefully with a positive outlook on the future. But therefore, first of all, we have to go deep into the trenches and be a bit sad about one of the topics that was shaking 2024 as well as 2023, which was layoffs. I noted down some numbers to make sure that I got it right. So for those people who are not that familiar with the layoff numbers, the statistics that I looked up, it's like that in 2023,
11,000 people got laid off in the games industry. In 2024, it was 13,000 people that got laid off, which is, to put it into perspective, the whole German games industry worldwide that got actually fired over the last year and the year before. How do you feel that within your own studio or also within the ecosystem of Berlin-Brandenburg and the game development studios over here?
Shall I start? So
sure. How many people did you fire personally? Or did you have to let go?
Not fire that many. We had to let go some people after the closure of the Cycle Frontier, but it was just a handful. But I just want to say in general, of course, it's very, very sad to see that many people are being laid off. But we should also look in the past, and we've seen that in the past as well, right? And we should not forget the amount comes also from how big the game industry became over the last couple of years, right? Yeah. So 10 years ago, it was maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people laid off. Now it's 20,000. But at the same time, the games industry grew quite a bit. This said, it's sad. It's still an aftermath for me for after COVID, right?
Yeah.
So, because we had this insane peak in COVID during the COVID times.
Insane positive peak.
Yeah,
with people playing and everything.
Peak in revenue in a way. So, and if you look at the actual numbers, if you look before COVID and now after COVID, and you would paint a line, it would be still a growing line, but we had this immense peak during COVID time, which we still have to live with. Yeah.
Was it that terrible? I mean, indies have to fight with economic conditions all the time. Would you say they are better prepared for sad times, or is the struggle on the same level as bigger studios?
I mean, so I would say indies, as a general, like you said, we struggle all the time, so it wasn't really a big difference. And for us personally, we got lucky. We got a nice big Games-Förderung from the Median Board just at the end of 2024. So I feel like I have to say thank you to you personally and maybe your team as well. So 2024 was pretty good for us personally. Of course, we saw outside and we saw what was happening, and it's tough. And you feel it mostly also in publishers. Like we had conversations with publishers where suddenly the person in the middle of the conversation was gone because they were fired. And that happened.
But that was not live in the meeting, but within the...
Yeah, it's mostly like you write an email and 2 weeks later someone answers, well, that person is gone. And your project kind of fell in a crack. So that happened. And we also had an investor who basically closed the door the day they were supposed to give us a contract. We instead got a notice of, hey, by the way, we fired everybody and now we're closing. So this, it happens. Of course, even if you're not personally affected, it's an ecosystem. It's kind of fragile, it feels. Yeah. And everything is interconnected. So yes, we felt it too.
So which leads perfectly to Amanda. I mean, did you recognize, or do you feel like more and more studios are coming and look for public funding because the situation is so difficult to get money from the publishers? Or would you say it's rather the same? Studios are always in need of money?
Yeah, I would say they're always in the need of money. Of course, it's noticeable that the Bundesförderung has been empty for quite a while now. What we see is that the people who got laid off basically sometimes create their own companies, and we have like new companies with experienced people. But I expected actually a higher number than it actually is. But like the flow of people coming to apply for funding is steady.
We will come back to the topic of funding and getting money in the games industry somehow, because I'm not sure who is watching us right now and how familiar everyone is with like the federal state-run public funding, which is the Bundesförderung, and also the regional federal funding, which would be the Median Board for Berlin-Brandenburg, for example, and all the other opportunities that we have over there. Philipp, you mentioned that it's a cyclical thing. I mean, that is it's not the first time that the industry got hit by some kind of crisis or had to lay off people. So can we all, give it a positive twist somehow, that we could say like, yeah, it's sad right now, but usually this will not last forever?
I'm pretty sure about it, yeah. So we will see already an uptick next year. I'm very sure about. But I think it will take a bit longer this time. And it's also a bit of a different cycle, right? Because in the past, we called it the console cycle. So every time a new console came out, there were a lot of layoffs because people had to get higher fundings, games got more expensive. Now it's a bit different, right? Now we have those games as a service, which have a lot of people playing them. They're playing 5, 6, 7-year-old games and still playing them. A lot of playtime goes into those titles, so it's really difficult for new title. At the same time, the development cost exploded also in the last couple of years. So there are two different challenges we have to look at and to see how we can overcome it, how we can keep development costs at least the same or even reduce them. There are some things on the horizon which might help, like procedural content generation. AI is a big buzzword, so we have to look how that will help the games industry. But overall, I'm still very optimistic that the games industry will look better in a year from now.
Yeah, it's great to hear, and I'm very happy that we have so much knowledge here together in this panel and have a proper discussion about stuff. For me, it's just like when I look at the time and we only have like 60 minutes and I got so many questions. I'm eager where we can fit this all in, because I would love to come back to the console cycle thing that you were mentioning before, and also say like how did the shift of the business model also affect the games industry. But to close it off for the layoffs, because it's a terrible topic, would you say like the German games industry, it was hit the same way like the international scene, or would you say like, okay, because we are more focused on PC and console, it was, what do you think? It was more terrible for the Germans somehow than the international scene? Or would you say, okay, these are layoffs that happen everywhere in the world right now? What's your take on this?
I would say it's about the same. I mean, also in Germany, we have a lot of mobile and software as a service game companies. I would say like it's all interconnected. I mean, the games industry isn't the only industry struggling right now. So I don't think we're worse or better affected than the rest of the world right now.
Okay.
I mean, I would definitely agree. I mean, we lost, or at least a couple of nice AA studios seriously downsized in that time. So I mean, we definitely were affected, and I'd say the same way.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to that we saw a lot of consolidation over the last couple of years, where companies were bought by bigger companies. And bigger certain names, bigger companies got struggled, and then they had to lay off people. And I think German's games industry was similar affected like worldwide.
Would you say there is anything that companies can do to kind of prevent that the layoffs are happening, or is it just because the games industry, the success goes in a sinus curve somehow, that it's always going to happen and there is nothing that you can do about? I mean, you have the longest experience. What was the biggest and smaller? How big did Jäger grow sometimes, and also how small was it? How was the cycle for you?
How small? We started with 5 guys, of course. That's how we founded the company, right? But and then we grew to 80 during Spec Ops times, and then I think the peak was 150. We are now down to 130. So it's tricky. So we try to level it out with co-dev work. So we are now working for other big projects. I mentioned them already, so that helped a bit, but it's also not that easy, right? It's also quite a difficult business to always find something where you can help with co-dev. At the same time, we still, of course, want to do our own projects. So, there are ways, but it's tricky because it's a hit-driven industry, and if you don't have a hit, it's also very difficult to get additional money.
Well, I would say it also, I mean, in addition to that, I would say also it's a bit about maybe managing a bit more conservatively. I mean, we had amazing years with negative interest and the COVID years, and if you build your business model thinking that this will just continue, like you mentioned that peak, then you're bound to crash. I mean, COVID was one thing, but the negative interest thing, the other thing, that was also bound to stop at some point. And I guess you have to build reserves to prepare for when, happy, magical time is over.
I would also say, like, trying to stay flexible and having the knowledge to adjust to certain situations, because I remember 3 years ago, I was basically sitting in a workshop for Fachkräftegewinnung. So basically for getting people from outside of EU or like all over the world to work in companies, because there weren't enough people for the companies making games. So we have like extreme I had extreme opposites in my career in the past years, concerning the topics. So I would say, like, having the knowledge to adjust to situations and also the flexibility, to live through it is really important.
That's one of my favorite topics, and it's also great because this also leads us over to the investment climate and the market changes as well as the market situation. You were mentioning, maybe teams need to be more conservative in their plannings and everything, but isn't that something that is considered like typical German, like being carefully planning and making sure that you're not growing too fast or anything like that? But to be the devil's advocate here, don't we miss out then on huge opportunities? Like, I don't know, the COVID times, as terrible as it was health-wise, but from the business side, that you need you could have great chances if you grew very fast, and then more like what I want to mention is, like, do we need to adopt to the more US kind of hire and fire state of mind, where just like, we ride the wave as long as it's rolling?
I mean, your previous question was, how do we prevent this from happening again? It wasn't like, what's the best business idea? I think you need to take some risks to grow, of course.
Yeah.
But then you have to live with the costs, which are what we're living through right now.
Yes, I think we need to be more like the US. So we need to be more offensive in a way because if you talk to investors, they want to see a return of investment. If you want to get money, you need to play big in a way, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are ways to facilitate that. And for example, one thing is CodeF, right? Why do you need to grow your own studio to 300 instead of trying to find good partners you can work with in the future? So that's one of our thing we want to do, right? We don't want to grow to 300 or 500. We want to hopefully stay the same, maybe getting a bit bigger, but working with a lot of good partners. And that is becoming more and more common, those kind of models, as we're seeing in industry, because that also helps to alleviate the amount of people you need, and because the projects will not get smaller, at least the big ones, right? So.
But when you talk about CodeF at Jaeger, means that you are outsourcing some of the stuff to other teams as well, or does it mean you are also doing some work for other teams, or is this
we are currently doing work for other teams, and there is also a difference between CodeF and outsourcing. So outsourcing is usually when you say, okay, I need a couple of assets, find a cheap Chinese manufacturer who gives you a lot of art assets. CodeF is usually something where you really connected with the other team, where you involved in the day-to-day decisions, where you have parts of the games which you own, where you create complete levels or features or something like that. And that's way more interesting also for people who are working in CodeF, because it's way more responsibility they then have, right? Instead of just getting a concept and then they have to model the character out of the concept. So I think it's the way forward for the industry.
Yeah.
Because it's important that so otherwise we will always see this kind of growing. The teams go on to 500, and then the title doesn't work, and then we are back to 100 or 50 or something like that. So that's an insane cycle. Yeah. So this is something we always. There was always the idea it could work like in the movie industry. I don't think that's going to work in the games industry, because we need more of those specialized jobs. But this could be a similar approach like they're doing with the VFX studios or something like that. So.
Okay.
I also think it depends on the business model, because there's software as a service. There is I'm selling my game with a one-time purchase, and between that, I'm sometimes doing work for hire, or there is like new subscription models. All of these and how you get the money and how you basically work with your funds is quite different.
Let's talk about financing then here. And also I did my homework and put some additional quote over here, which is from the DDM Games Investment Review. They're sending out a quarterly newsletter which is telling about the investment climate within the industry. And the last one that they sent out was just recently, I think this week, and was saying like with 3 quarters down and 1 to go, 2024 has been on par for game investments and mergers and acquisition, totaling 10 billions across 726 transactions. I'm going to keep it short a little bit. The interesting part is here. The increased volume across investments and mergers and acquisition transactions was 16% plus compared to the volume, or 16% plus compared to the volume in 2023. Do you also have this feeling of, next to CoDev and work for hire, do you also have this feeling in your conversations with publishers or publishing partners or other developers that the climate is picking up the investment climate, that people are spending the risk capital people or everyone who is still, the publishers still have money, it's just they're clinging more together to it. Do you have the feeling they are willing to spend it more and preparing for the time after the layoffs when everything was going to pick up? Oh, that was a very long question, sorry.
I can only say what some other people and me saw on Gamescom, that people stayed on Friday until the afternoon, which wasn't that common a few years ago, and I saw this in this year as a good sign that people are still in conversation, still talking, and maybe want to spend some money. So for me, that was a positive sign.
Depends on whether it was just developers or also publishers.
Not only developers.
I just can speak from the past again.
Yeah.
So this is what usually happens as well, right? So the publishers keeping their money close to them.
Yeah.
They don't want to invest. And then they actually find out, oh, we have a lot of holes in our portfolio for 2 or 3 years, and then they suddenly have to open up their purse again and trying to get titles, because otherwise they run out of titles to publish in the future, right? So it's also something we see over again. A bit of a difference is now that what you mentioned, that investment and also mergers and acquisition, they play a way bigger role, and that's mainly because of the risk, right? So in the past, the projects were not that expensive, was still millions and tens of millions, but now we are hundreds of millions in certain areas. That's something where you want to put your risk not on a pure publishing deal, right? Then you want to also kind of buy the company who's doing the game or something like that. So that's something we see more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's an additional layer that's opening up as well, because so publishers being more and more conservative, they're also asking more and more of the developers, before they even sign. Now you have to have a very, very polished demo. You have to have your game on Steam with wish lists. You have to have a community. And all of this is actually leading developers to build up these skills, which traditionally were with publishers. And you start to seriously think about, okay, who do I want to partner with if I need less from them?
Yeah.
And this leads to, I've gone into contact with a couple of funds which invest in projects from indies specifically, smaller amounts, and they will invest for the indies to do the whole publishing themselves. And I think we'll see more and more of this in the future. Okay.
So you mean the full 360 publishing doing everything except of getting the money from the fund then?
Basically, the developer will become his own publisher more and more, and you will find investments who will just invest in the project as a whole, with the marketing and all the services on top of it. I think this is. I don't know if this will take over the rest, because there is a big demand for everything that publisher brings to the table, but I think that this will be an additional column that will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, the moment when a publisher goes into a project changed from what I've heard. Before they sometimes wanted to get in pretty early to actually also structure the process, and nowadays they get in quite late and only do the marketing or like, which is also marketing, the events, to actually have already a more or less finished game and to help them to actually be seen or finish the game.
To put you a bit into perspective right here, or to let the audience know, because you're not running a studio, but actually you are working together. I mean, with how many teams? They all must come to you if they want to close their publishing deal, because the medium board somehow wants their money back. Or I mean, there's a lot of there should be a lot of coming and going then somehow.
So basically, what Medium Board is giving out is a success-based loan.
Yeah.
So they get 50% of their game funded from us if it's actually economically sustainable, because we are delivering a economic fund where we have to see that the team is capable of making the game skill-wise, but also time-wise and cost-wise, but also able to market it and to sell it in the end. So if they achieve that, they cover their own expenses, their own 50%, and then they start paying us back like from each euro 50 cents.
Yeah.
And of course, we do some games which are already going on with publisher deal or potential publisher deal, but we also see a lot of self-publishing. So since I see, like in my day-to-day work life, a lot of games in a lot of different states, I can't really say that I only see one thing or that I only have to do with teams that I have publishers, but like really the whole range.
Yeah.
From concept to almost finished project.
Philip, you got an investment into, or the team of yours got an investment into Jaeger. When was it actually? Was it 2021? From your point of view or from your experience, was that at a level where people were actually caring about the product you're currently working on, or was it more like, because Jaeger is around for tens of years, that they just thought like, okay, they're delivering quality since years, so that's why we need to invest in there?
It was kind of both. So we were well known, and we were very well connected to Tencent, who invested in us before that. And but they also saw our actual project back then, the Cycle Frontier, and they found it very interesting, and that's why they invested. Yeah.
And it was a good thing for the team, or
it was definitely a good thing for us, because we wanted actually to change to becoming more a company who can publish their games themselves, right? Because that's important if you're going for games as a service. It's very difficult in a publisher-developer relations, right? Because you need to be very close to your players to give them the best experience, to give them the stuff they wanna see, and therefore it was our wish to go in that direction, and therefore we needed investment compared to just someone who pays for the game, right, and then gets royalties or something like that.
So what's the personal view of the three of you when it comes to looking for a publisher or doing self-publishing these days? Would you say like, I mean, no, don't say it depends, but if you had the opportunity to decide freely, then somehow, what would be your personal take?
For us, it's self-publishing. So I would like to, as we go in games as a service full in, it's important for us to be the publisher of our games. So there's, of course, we have big help. Tencent is a huge company. They have a lot of experience with games as a service, with free-to-play and so on. But still, we want to be in the driving seat, so to speak, to be as close as possible to our customers.
But that also comes to when it's about, I don't know, doing the KPI analysis and crunching the numbers and everything. Then it's also like you're building up this knowledge by yourself in-house? Or?
We're building that up in-house as well. But as I said, we have Tencent in the background, who is one of the biggest companies in that regard. And of course, they can help us a lot. That's one of the advantages why we also went for someone who is very well known in that area, because they can help us a lot in the background. Yeah.
I'd say Best case scenario would be, I mean, for the same reason as you have, this would be self-publishing, but that's just not a reality for most indie developers, us included. So
why not?
Well, it's a question of money, right?
Yeah.
So mostly, and also question of contacts, and I mean, and a publisher does take a lot of load off you. If you're a small team of 6 people and you have to take care of localization, you have to take care of QA and everything, it just becomes a lot at some point. But I'd say I would be looking forward more to a co-publishing relationship where it becomes a partnership, because we've built this relationship with our community already, and we have all of this set up that we would probably be able to do it ourselves. It needs to be a bit more of a cooperation.
It's interesting because you say, like, I mean, publisher these days, they want you to finish the stuff anyway all by yourself without spending the first money into that. But yeah, I think it's a very good take that the times are over where it's just like, yeah, do you have a publisher, yes or no? But thinking exactly about what is the benefit or what is the service that we need from a publisher, that it doesn't have to be the 360 publisher that does like everything, but maybe you need someone who's just doing localization or just doing QA or QA and marketing support and stuff like that.
I mean, we don't want the 360 publisher.
Yeah.
We're at the point where we have the skill set, and having a 360 publisher would mean that we'd have to let people go because we wouldn't need them anymore.
Yeah.
So we're actively not looking for that.
And also because you want the higher share then, I guess, from the...
Obviously, yes. Obviously, yes. I was trying to be diplomatic.
I think the important thing is the word partnership, right?
Yeah.
So in the past, it was like the developer developed a game on its own, gave it to the publisher, and then the publisher did all the rest. And that's not working anymore, right? You need to have a very good partnership with your publisher. So there are certain areas where your publisher is of course, way better because they have way more experience than you as a developer. But there are other areas, especially when it comes to player feedback and what people love about the game. There's usually the developer knows that best, and so there needs to be a partnership, and in the ideal world the developer is at least in the decision process and decision making involved, that the decisions are made in a good way, which didn't happen necessarily in the past, right, where often publisher did crazy decisions where even the developer said, oh no, that was not our decision, that was the publisher. Yeah. So that's of course very bad.
Yeah. Also to put the good spin into that it's like the power dynamics that were in the past decades or in the history of making games were just like the publisher had it all, and you as a developer, you had no chance at all to do something without the publisher giving some kind of money into the project. But now these days, I mean, with the opportunity of games as a service, there might also be the leeway that the developer can set up to take more risk on itself somehow.
I mean, I wouldn't limit the closeness to players in the game as a service space. This is I think nowadays, if you want to be successful as an indie, you have to be close to your community, no matter what kind of game you do.
Yeah.
And most publishers we talked to over the past year also recognize that value, because this is something that they will not be able to replicate, because also the players now want to have this relationship with the developers.
Yeah.
No matter the game.
Oh, okay. How is it? How do you see that at the medium board, Amanda, and the teams coming to you? Are you also? Are they asking quite often whether they should go with the publisher or go on their own, or do you have the feeling like they have a very clear vision of what they want to achieve?
So I'm not allowed to answer the teams that question.
Yeah.
Because I'm here for like helping them to get funding and to to make the best pitch deck and the best application, so that I can basically represent them in the Fördersitzung, in the committee. But the trend definitely goes to more and more self-publishing than having people telling me that they are actively looking for a publisher. But still, as you said, with like a team of 4 to 6 people, maybe the week of 7 days isn't enough, or like the work week of 5 days isn't actually enough to for you to learn, to get the expertise, to do marketing. That's why this community building is so important. We have like up to 100 games released on Steam every day, and to be seen in this huge amount of games is the most important thing. You can make the best game ever seen, but if no one actually buys it and like sees it on Steam, it's like not even there or present. So I don't really get asked if it's better to have a publisher or not, but the question is definitely in the heads of the people, and the need is something they decide out of their team capacity.
Yeah. We should not forget that the publisher landscape also has changed quite a bit, right? In the past, we only had those big EAs and Ubisofts, and nowadays you have very specialized publishers for indies. They know way better what an indie needs than they know what we need, and so on and so on. Therefore, there's always the right deckel for the top. so you will find the right you can find the right partner who understands your needs and can help you with that. Yeah.
But community building is an important topic these days, which means like I mean, you were in the lucky situation that you had built up some trust by the community already with Back Up the Line, for example, which are then can put up some trust and confidence in future Jäger titles. But how would you say, Felix? I mean, how important is it these days or when shall people start to work with the community?
I mean,
by when they plan their new game or work on their new game.
I mean, we're a team of 6, like I mentioned, and one of the 6 persons does not work on the game. She does community and marketing 100%. And
since the start?
Since the moment we announced.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good way to go, because our metrics our wish lists are good, or we have a good community, it's building up, and this takes work. You have to publish, you have to post, you have to keep an eye on all the festivals.
Yeah.
And if you want to get into the eye of course the buyers, but also the publishers, that's what you have to do today, in my opinion.
Okay, so trying to create this pull over that you spark some publisher interest because they can't not avoid it, but they see that there's a great community which is vocal about the stuff that you're doing right now. That this creates like some kind of pull trigger to get publishers in.
The magical word is traction. Yeah. It's like if you want to have an investor in any of the tech spaces, you have to show some sort of traction. And it just translates over to games. And the traction you can show without having any game out is your wish list.
And when you said like going to announce the title, that was the announcement of the title as well as putting the Steam wishlist page live. Or I mean,
do not announce your game before you have somewhere to funnel, and that funnel is the Steam page. The classical call to action. Yes. It's just like, okay, if you get the attention of people, let them do something.
I would say like start early, but only as early as you're able to post like continuously. Because if you do like 3 posts over 3 weeks and then you're silent for half a year, you lose that traction again. So important, absolutely, like get a Steam page, collect some wish lists, and only like get your Discord server up if you're actually able to communicate with your community and like catch them into your development process.
And that is some kind of fundamental shift that is actually happening. I mean, years ago, I guess no one was working in the marketing of your studio or anything, because, or how do you see that, Philip? I guess in the beginning, people were working on the game itself and make sure that that there is something that the publisher can later do the marketing or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. That has changed quite a bit. So nowadays you need someone in the studio. As soon as Felix said, as soon as you announce your game in any way, it can also be a Kickstarter campaign, you need to have someone, and most probably have 100% who's taking care of community, social media, and so on and so on. That became so important over the last couple of years.
And I would also say it's a very good move. It doesn't even matter if you have a publisher or you don't have one. I think you know your game best, and it's important that you actually give the publishers something to work with, so that they don't like do what they think of, and your vision of the game or your vision of the marketing or community is different. So I think this should be, as already mentioned, a partnership.
I'm very happy. I mean, I won't forget the topic of public funding, but as we are very deep in this kind of discussion about the future of marketing, or let's say about marketing itself somehow these days, and also the sustainability of the business model right now. I mean, we have two different approaches here right now. With Felix doing, it's going to be your title, Lost Legion, is going to be premium PC, premium, and console, if I get it right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Early access PC, and then we're going to transition to console for 1.0.
And Philip, at the same time, you just said, okay, the whole studio over the years pivoted to more like the games as a service approach. Would you say like, okay, how do you see that? Is games as a service also a way for an indie developer somehow? And could you, Philip, also imagine going back to the typical premium kind of game all over?
Yeah, I think we just talked about community and social media and so on.
Yeah.
So for me nowadays, every game is a games as a service, because that's the part of it, right? So
okay, so a service as a service for the community, to the community.
It's
okay.
not only the service of getting more content out, but it's also the service of helping your community or communicating with your community. Yeah. So therefore, everything is kind of, if you want to be successful, you need to have some parts of games as a service, as we understand it, available. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we are all doing games as a service these days, as a service.
In a way, there are of course
community.
different levels of games as a service, right?
Yeah.
So also, it's also important to say games as a service does not necessarily mean free to play, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of premium games as a service, so that's also a big part of the business.
I mean, early access is a form of games as a service, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In funding, I still wanted to have it specified as like a single purchase or a subscription or like in-game purchases. I mean, of course you're right, but like if you like condense it down, it's important, like at least for funding, to show how you want to earn the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, understand that. Also, I mean, we have to remember that there's a huge variety of free-to-play games. Yeah? There are lots of different options. We are not free-to-play doesn't necessarily mean we're only talking about loot boxes on the other side and premium on one side, but it could also mean, you know it all, like, I don't know, season passes, advertisement, or whatever. There are different ways to do it in a more community-friendly way. Yeah? Let's say it like that. Talking about the future of games marketing then somehow, everyone wants to have the player within their own community. But if you're really dedicated to a game, let's be honest, there's not much time if you're really into FIFA Ultimate Team, if you're really into League of Legends, PUBG or whatever. How do you compete in the future with the limited attention span of the people playing the games, and how do you pull it over into your community and make them a #1 fan of your game?
It's a very good question, and I don't have an answer to that, but that's one of the biggest challenge we have by now, because there are so many big games by now which bound a certain community, and it's really hard to get people out of those communities into your community. So it's challenging, but it's doable, because you still see games succeeding with that, right? So Helldivers is a great example, right? Okay. Nobody saw that coming in a way, and they could build a very big community. Yeah. So, but usually what you have to look at is, of course, where are your players, right? Which players you want to target. That's also something new we've never thought in the past about. So which player we want to target, right? Everyone. But that's not true anymore. So you need to also think about beforehand which kind of players you want to target, which your community should look like. Yeah.
That's how we target. That's why we chose to do a survival crafting game. Originally, actually, we went and looked at the market, and this is a great genre, and apparently people kind of jump from game to game. So we hoped this would happen with us as well, and so far, at least, it seemed like it might. but you don't know before your game actually goes on sale.
Yeah, I mean that is always the thing, that we don't know what's going to happen in the future somehow. But it's interesting because also, yeah, when I was younger, you didn't spend that much time thinking about market research or anything as a developer, because you would say like, okay, the developer makes the game. Everything else, the publisher then has his marketing guys and girls who are taking care of how to find the proper persona, who to market that. But it's interesting that this that the whole development process is also shifting more into this kind of business process right now, where you also, as a small, I mean, bigger studio, smaller studio, or people supporting development studios, that they also have to take care of all these challenges these days.
Yeah, I mean, the games market is quite saturated at the moment, and before you actually begin to develop a game, you need to know your position on the market. What's a similar game to your potential game? What's the target group? How can you reach them? That also makes it a bit more cost effective in the end, because if you know who you want to address, and if you know that there is actually an audience, and how to price your game, and what the target group usually spends for a game, and how much time they actually spend in the game. Just as an example, I like either strategy games where I'm like being in there for hours, or like short cozy exploration games where I like enjoy like 4 hours or something, and then I hop on to the next one. And the developers need to actually find a way in the internet mostly, or on events, how to get me in.
It's so sad. I really love the discussion, but I have this. You can't see it, people watching us, but there's a timer ticking down here quite harshly on and telling me, okay, I need to come over to the question that the chat sent to us, and the people in the audience as well. But before that, as I promised, we talk about public funding. We need to talk about public funding and how the year was 2024 regarding public funding. Let's talk briefly about the Bundesförderung. I mean, the public funding that you can receive on a level where it doesn't matter where you're based in Germany, but you can apply for that everywhere. I mean, what was happening with that? Anyone wants to summarize it briefly?
I mean, the pot has been empty in 2024. We're hoping that it's going to open in 2025. Sadly, it seems like you won't be able to accumulate funds anymore, so combine the Bundesförderung with regional fundings, which will make the situation kind of hard for especially the smaller companies. But yeah, up until now, we're waiting.
Yeah, don't give up hope. There will be a future with federal games funding and the Bundesförderung. We just don't know yet. But
that's one of the issues, right? So funding should be reliable. So people need to be able to rely on, okay, if I do something next year, there will be some money for me which I can get. So this is one of the biggest issues we have right now, right? That especially the federal funding ran out, and we need to do something about it. Yeah.
I totally feel you on that, and I was hoping that we don't go this route, because we. But you're right. I mean, it was promised that the federal funding is about stability, and that is what exactly this is what is missing right now. But we don't have the time to discuss this in detail. But we can all say, okay, it would be nice if it would be still accessible right now, because that was promised in the beginning. But there is like the mini board. There's just like regional funding is still happening, and this is good because it happens since time, and also. We had a short conversation before. The chances are good if I apply for public funding and have a good project in Berlin, that I get a Berlin or Brandenburg, that I could get some money.
Yes, absolutely. We're, as it says, we're regional funding, so it's important to have most of the people working in the game and most of the costs spent in the region. But yeah, the medium board funding will stay. And we love to fund great games. It's really important that you have a project that fulfill certain requirements. It has to be economically sustainable, or at least you have to have a plan on how to spend the money effectively. Also a team who's actually able to make the game, and of course a USP in a game that actually works. Like, we can't fund, as I always say, a second Fortnite, which doesn't have a USP, but we also know that you cannot invent das Rad neu erfinden. You cannot invent the wheel new. So you actually have to see, to make a great concept that people want to be immersed in.
That worked like a charm, because that is one of the questions that I got from the audience, or from the people over there, which were asking, like, Amanda, in funding applications, what are the 3 things that you would say make a strong application? So it was USP, it was
the team that is actually able to do it with the skill set that's needed and the time that's needed to make the game.
Yes, and
like economic planning to know, like, where's your market position, how can you get your community marketing plan. If you can actually keep your production value, that's something I really have to see. So the best way is to hop on a call with me and let me explain everything, the whole thing to the people, and actually ask me a lot of questions. That's really important. But also, like, check out a lot of stuff on YouTube, check out what other people said on Reddit already, look at successful pitch decks, but also look at games that weren't successful. Like, really do your research, and then please be creative and make great games.
Yeah, and again, I mean, now we are going full circle somehow, because it says, like, even the part that we talked about, which is important these days, like the business aspect and the marketing aspect, this is also necessary these days for a strong application then somehow. So very briefly then, when we talk about the 3 things out of the question that usually developers make as a big mistake, what are the 3 biggest mistakes when apply for public funding of the Medium Board? To not do all these things that we just mentioned on, but besides of that, any typical top 1 mistake?
People paying themselves not enough. It's a huge mistake, because it's an economic funding. We actually want to build companies that work, companies that check out the next project whilst they're still in the production phase of the first one, because if you don't have a follow-up project, how are you actually going to earn money? Or, like, I don't know, what are you doing when your game is out if it's a single purchase?
It's not a race to the button where the cheapest project gets the money, but it needs to be sustainable in the long run.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, important point.
And people have to have their numbers straight. I understand that it's not possible to know everything in advance. Like, we're all not, like, future, we cannot really look into the future, but you have to have a plan how to spend your money and where to spend your money, and you can have some alterations from that, but you really need to know what you're doing to actually not, like, if you get the money and you basically don't spend it wisely, then you're I wanted to say not a nice word, you're in trouble.
How is it from the team side? I mean, you all applied for funding somehow, I guess. I know.
I mean, if there's one thing I can add to what you really have to think about is at the end of your budget, think about the gap between your release and when you're actually going to get paid by Steam or whoever. Because if you talk about it with the Medium Board, you can factor this in and get a bit more money for a release in this month, and the furthering stops this month, so that we don't, like, stop paying ourselves for 1 or 2 months until the money gets here. So think about that as well.
We never applied for public funding. No, not game funding. We had some other funding within Berlin, but not game funding. Because usually for the size of our company, it's the regional funding is too small, and the federal funding ran out. And usually, companies like us, we are games taking 3 or 4 years, right? So
Yes.
we can only apply every 3 years. So that's a bit tricky for us. Therefore, for a company like us, for the bigger companies, there are currently other models which we're talking about, right? Which also are used in other countries, like a tax break model, which would be, of course, way more interesting for us. But I think both have their merits, and both are important for good and great German games industry.
I would like to add one point: never stop learning. Actually, and we all talked a lot about skills and new skills that have to be applied. But if you stop learning how to do a pitch deck, how to do marketing, how to adjust to situations, or to work with the new shifts in the industry, you won't be successful. So I think preparing yourself for an application is to talk to a lot of people, do a lot of networking, talk to us, see what kind of funding is out there. There's EU funding, there is like the federal state funding, there's regional funding, and there's the new stipendium. So look out for opportunities and don't wait for them to come to you, but use some search engines and talk a lot to other people.
Congratulations for everyone watching us right now, because you are doing it the right way and you are learning about the stuff that is actually matters in the future. So kudos to you. Another question that I got put in is what are your wishes for politicians to improve the climate in the games industry in Germany in the long term? Stability, again, that's what I can summarize already, and also like tax breaks would be a better thing.
That would be a big one for the bigger companies, that's for sure.
Okay, besides of that, anything to add? If we could wish us something?
A better understanding of the industry, because you just said tax credit for the bigger companies. I completely agree, because the bigger companies are the ones who can actually wait for the money to come at the end of a fiscal year. But the smaller ones need the money ad hoc, and I think understanding that is really important to deliver the help that's needed.
I mean, we are not to get us wrong, we are grateful about all the money that got poured into the games industry so far. It's not like that we are complaining all the time. It's just like sometimes it could be better adjusted to the needs of the developers as well as the studios and everything. And as Amanda said before, there's always room for improvement and room to learn something. So it'd be nice in a partnership together with the industry to the politicians in the industry, to see a better public funding in the even better public funding in the future. As we slowly need to come to an end, the last question from the audience is like, would you say it's a good time to start a studio right now or not? And what is the biggest difference currently in the industry compared to 2019? I would go even a bit farther into the past and say, like, I don't know, compared into 2014. Which also not the far, but yes, founding a studio, yes or no, right now?
Always when I get asked this question, the answer is no. It's a nightmare. Don't do it. But if this is really what you want to do, then it's actually pretty amazing. It's an addiction. I've been doing this for 17 years. You've been doing this for longer than that. So it can be the best thing in the world. And I think if you do get funding now and you start working now, it might actually be a good time, because there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel we're in at the moment. And if you start now, there's a good chance you might come out at the right moment. Short answers now only.
Always found a company. So I love entrepreneurship, right? It's important for our industry, and you always learn something, even if you fail, right? So you learn something, and then the next time you know better, right? We usually don't have that kind of fail in Germany, right? But fail, first achievement in learning, is a very well-known thing, right? So try it and go for it. Of course.
Anything to add, Amanda? Very shortly.
I mean, I want to play great games, so
keep building.
If that's the way to go, and you see all the risks that you could take and get all the knowledge in, fund your studio.
Okay, great. So very last question, just give me a sign. 2025 is getting better or worse than this year?
Better.
Better?
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Better.
Better. Thanks a lot. That's it so far from our side. Thanks a lot. Big applause to our great panelists. It was a real pleasure to sit together with you and have this kind of discussion. We could have spent more time with it, but sadly, we only have this 1 hour together with all the people that made it possible. So from my point, first of all, thank to every one of you. And also big thanks to everyone who made this possible today. So thanks a lot for Alex Berlin, the people that you can't see right now that are behind the cameras and doing the microphone stuff and everything that is needed to run the show. Thanks to the medianet team, to the people, the audience, the virtual as well as the physical audience. The panelists, the sponsors that you can see in the back somewhere as well, like medianet Games, Medienboard, medianet Berlin, Brandenburg, and everyone. It was a great show. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Cool. Sehr schön.
Das war eine Punktlandung.
Ja, ja.
So, und jetzt haben wir noch den Tagesschau-Moment. Genau. Achso, stimmt. Ja, aber da müsste auch Gundula Gause jetzt noch hier sein oder Klaus Kleber, damit man